Are there any objections? No? The agenda is adopted. Dear colleagues, I am delighted to welcome you to the first meeting of the OSCE General Committee on Economic Affairs, Science, Technology and Environment. As we meet here in Bucharest, the OSCE region is affected by a complex web of threats. Hence, our cooperative efforts are more crucial than ever, particularly as we navigate an era of fast-paced technological advancements, environmental degradation, economic competition, and geopolitical confrontation. Each of these elements not only poses individual challenges, but also intersects with one another, creating a dynamic and often unpredictable landscape that we must address with urgency and foresight. Before we start our discussions, I would like to thank our Vice Chair, Artur Gerasimov, and Rapporteur Gudrun Kukuler, as well as the International Secretariat for their dedication and hard work over the past year. Their contributions have been essential in advancing our shared goals and strengthening the foundation of our collaborative efforts. Dear friends, dear colleagues, to begin with, it would be impossible not to mention the Russian Federation's ongoing war of aggression against Ukraine, which has clearly shown the fragility of our common security architecture with a devastating impact on both our economies and on the environment. Besides this generating immense human suffering, the war has in fact disrupted global connectivity, turned energy markets upside down, triggered an unprecedented cost of living crisis in many of our countries, boosted food insecurity, and severely impacted and our delicate environment. Our committee must continue to advocate for policies that enhance the resilience of critical energy and civilian infrastructures, also to safeguard basic human needs. This includes promoting energy security, diversifying energy sources, and investing in renewable energy. By embracing clean energy alternatives, we will strengthen our resilience and contribute to a more sustainable future. Without mutual trust, no cooperative security is possible. And without cooperative security, we don't be able to effectively address the many global security challenges affecting our planet. For instance, a significant area of focus for our committee this year has been the security implications of artificial intelligence. During the winter meeting, we hosted a special debate on this critical issue, engaging with experts from various sectors. This timely exchange underscored the need to duly embrace this groundbreaking technology while mitigating all associated risks. Many speakers concurred that the robust regulatory frameworks will be critical to ensure that applications associated with AI are used responsibly and ethically. Building on these discussions, our OSCE Parliamentary Conference in Lisbon on Security in the Age of Artificial Intelligence, held on May 20, graciously hosted by the Portuguese Parliament with the support of our committee's secretariat, further emphasized the importance of comprehensive regulatory measures of AI, which have to account for the exponential speed of progress in this field. We have also agreed that the international cooperation is essential to ensure that AI technologies are developed and deployed in ways that safeguard human rights, dignity, and privacy. Ultimately, we must ensure that AI is used to enhance human well-being and security rather than undermining it. I am proud that many of These findings are duly reflected in the draft resolution proposed by our rapporteur, thus demonstrating that our engagement throughout the year has been instrumental to develop greater consensus around such a critical issue. I think it would be relevant to establish a new subcommittee to constantly monitor developments in this field. Maybe new special representative could be appointed for the purposes. Of course, it will be depending mainly on the leadership and on the bureau, but it would be a great idea if we have such a mechanism in order to monitor this issue. In addition to our work on artificial intelligence, promoting environmental protection and sustainable development remains a priority on our agenda, as the two concepts are profoundly interlinked and mutually reinforcing. Dear colleagues, over the past years, the second committee has made significant contributions to the discussion around environmental threats by exploring topics such as air, soil, water pollution, and the nexus between environmental degradation and public health. From 2023, we formally contribute to the Mediterranean Commission on Sustainable Development. The Mediterranean region, being a hotspot for global warming and pollution, requires our concerted efforts to address these issues. Our collaboration with the United Nations Environmental Programme has been instrumental in promoting green development and safeguarding the delicate environment of the Mediterranean basin. Last December, I personally addressed the 23rd meeting of the contracting parties to the Barcelona Convention in Portoroz, where I emphasized our Assembly's determination to inject a strong parliamentary perspective in global efforts to protect our ecosystems and promote green development. Needless to point that the challenges posed by climate change continue to be a pressing issue for our committee. Extreme weather events, pollution, deforestation, and the biodiversity loss are affecting the stability and security of our region. The severe impact of climate change requires proactive measures. We are well aware by now about the need of transition to greener and more eco-friendly practices in all sectors in order to drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The upcoming UN International Climate Conference, COP29, to be hosted by my home country, Azerbaijan, from 11th November to 24th, should represent a great opportunity to redouble our efforts and place our Assembly at the forefront of this global action. Dear colleagues, dear friends, last but not least, our strategic cooperation with OSCE executive structure has also been a significant focus throughout the year. Besides our institutional exchange during the winter meeting in March 2024, I visited the OSCE Secretariat in Vienna and engaged in productive discussions with the new coordinator of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activities, Ambassador Bakir Zhupov, and his able team, as well as with the 2024 Maltese OSCE chairmanship. This exchange aimed at aligning our security agendas to tackle economic and environmental challenges more holistically and effectively. I look forward to more opportunities to reinforce our coordination and cooperation in the coming year. I really want to commend the precious work conducted on a daily basis by our International Secretariat, and especially our Vienna office for working in synergy with the executive structure of the OSCE. This is critical to the success of our initiatives. Esteemed colleagues and friends, as we continue our work, it is imperative that our committee remains a leading platform for understanding and addressing old and emerging challenges. By sharing best practices and fostering international cooperation, we can continue to develop innovative and well-informed policy guidance that will inspire our effective efforts. Before concluding, I would like to congratulate the diligent work done by our rapporteur, over the last 3 years, Madam Kugler, which helped our Assembly break new grounds in many fields. This has been the case, for instance, in the context of both better understanding and regulating artificial intelligence, or bringing to the table the socio-economic challenges posed by declining demographic trends in many OSCE countries. Her focus on vulnerable children has also been remarkable, especially in the context of fighting human trafficking and on ensuring that nobody is left behind by the irreversible digitalization process that is affecting the entire world. Thank you, dear Gudrun, for your active engagement, for your honest collaboration, and for your friendship over the last 3 years. Your legacy is remarkable. Dear colleagues, I look forward to our discussions and collective progress we will make during this session. Dear colleagues, the committee is scheduled to have 4 meetings during this session. Our first task will be to debate the report by our rapporteur, Ms. Gudrun Kugler, entitled "The Role of the OSCE in the Current Security Architecture, a Parliamentary Perspective." We will also consider amendments on her draft resolution. If time permitting, we will start this process today. We have 8 amendments tabled to the draft resolution, which are available outside the room on the documents table and on the app. In addition, this committee has been tasked by the Standing Committee to debate and consider 4 supplementary items covering the following issues. First, addressing the multifaceted impacts of climate change and the water scarcity in the Central Asian region through enhanced regional cooperation and parliamentary dialogue proposed by Ms. Karimi from the Netherlands. The another one is youth perspective on the future of international relations, multilateralism and sustainable development, proposed by Mr. Stogmuller from Austria. Another one is preventing corruption from being used as a foreign policy tool, proposed by Ms. Karlambidis from Cyprus. And last but not least, environmental protection in international armed conflicts, proposed by Ms. Honore from Italy. Amendments are available in the usual way. We will consider the supplementary items on our main business on the draft resolution is concluded. Dear colleagues, may I remind that the election of committee officers for the next annual session of the Assembly will take place during the committee's final session, which is likely to take place on Thursday, 2nd of July at 9 a.m. I have been asked to put before the committee a proposal by the Secretariat for a change to the deadline for candidate nominations. This is to allow sufficient time for the arrangements for the election to be made ahead of our meeting on Thursday. The same proposal is being put by all general committees. Under Rule 36, paragraph 5, the Secretariat would like to ask the committee to agree that the deadline for nominations for the committee officers shall be 8 p.m. on Monday, 1st of July. 6 p.m. on Monday, 1st of July. Are there any objections, dear colleagues? I don't see any objections. The proposal is adopted. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to welcome to the floor Ms. Gudrun Kugler to present her report and the resolution to this committee. It would assist me greatly if any member wishing to speak during the debate could enter his or her name in the register as early in the debate as possible. So, we start from you, Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
I will speak from here, is it okay? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to present to you today my report and draft resolution. This is my 3rd year as a rapporteur in the 2nd committee and my last year, so it's almost a little bit sad, I have to say, because it's been very interesting to work with all of you on these issues. Now, I had an incredible working experience with the team. I would like to say a very big thank you to our chair, Azai Guliev, to our vice chair, Artur Gerasimov. I would like to say a very big thank you to the entire secretariat. You can see many of them here. There's Marco Bonabello here, but everybody else helping. And also a thank you to my assistant in the Austrian Parliament, Tabita Rauscher, who is sitting here on my left. You can see this is just a couple of pieces of paper, but it's months and months of work to get it actually that far. And it means intense cooperation amongst all of us. And it's Artur Gerasimov from Ukraine that calls me at 2 o'clock in the morning to say, well, I have an idea for your report. And Asa is sending me his ideas. So this is very meaningful, and it's a lived example of what OSCE stands for, cooperation amongst all of us. Now, I will very briefly walk you through the key points of my report and of the draft resolution. It will not take very long. I'm doing this to remind you of what you have read when you receive the papers and inspire a discussion that will then lead us into discussing the amendments. And like this, we will come to, in a way, a common conclusion. Now, I would also like to remind you that the idea of these reports is that we cannot talk about all the problems in each report of each year entirely. So what I have done in the past 3 years is take different focuses and build upon each other. So if you rightfully say, well, how about that topic, and it's maybe not big enough in this version of the report, I will say, well, look please into what we did last year, because the second committee has so many topics, I don't need to recall it to you. It's impossible to say, well, here's everything that is important in the 7 pages that the Secretariat allows me to actually present. Now, as I have said in the previous years, the second committee is becoming, in a way, I think, the most important committee, because the issues that we are dealing with are becoming more and more striking. In my report, I try to give an overview of the turmoil that we find ourselves in, key challenges and some solutions. Point number 1 is cooperation in rebuilding Ukraine. And we focus in the report and the draft resolution on rebuilding critical infrastructure by using the principle build back better. This will be something for all of us to say we will rebuild and help Ukraine to start on a higher level than they did before. And in this sense, we welcome very much the parliamentary support team for Ukraine within our assembly. But as we looked into the conflict, the illegal and unjustified military invasion of Ukraine, we also see, relevant to our committee, that there were environmental war crimes committed. The worry of the safety of power plants such as Zaporizhzhia, then the destruction of the Kharkovka dam, these things are war crimes, and they are environmental war crimes. And you do recall that within the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, the ICC, there is actually an item that says that environmental crimes are war crimes. It seems to me that in our parliaments, this is not emphasized enough, and that it does make sense to underline this fact. Second point is water management. I had the privilege to join Special Representative Farah Karimi to the Uzbekistan Aral Sea. And as you know, the Aral Sea is only a 13th of its original size. Now this is a catastrophe. And as we were told by the people there, it is a direct consequence of Soviet mismanagement, of political erroneous decisions. I think that is something for us that should ring a warning bell. Political decisions can lead to such things. So one focus of this year is to support the efforts in that region for water security. And I very much welcome that tomorrow there is a side event on this topic led by Farah Karimi. Third point is artificial intelligence, and our chair, Azai Guliev, has very eloquently already talked about this today. We had a very interesting meeting in Lisbon just, I think, a month ago or so, May 20th, entitled Security in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. And I would like to say a big thank you to the Portuguese delegation. It was an absolutely outstanding conference. We also had a focus on artificial intelligence in our winter meeting in February of this year in Vienna, and therefore artificial intelligence is the main focus of my report for this year. Obviously, I do not need to recall to you, you are very much aware of the breakthroughs in AI recently, of its potential to unlock innovative opportunities, its economic potential, but I also do not need to recall to you the manifold dangers that come with unregulated artificial intelligence. I mentioned in my report things like misusing targeted surveillance, distorting access to information, behavioral manipulation, the influence of single large players that are not from our region, such as China, the danger this poses to human rights, to transparency and to democracy, and the openness to political control from dangerous sources is clear to all of us. Therefore, I propose just a few things in the report and the draft resolution. One is standardized guidelines for ethical design and impact assessment, transparency in the training data, liability norms for AI, clearly identifiable names and a possibility for the people to know what is AI and what is not. And I also suggest to establish an ad hoc committee on artificial intelligence within our parliamentary assembly. That's just a few things regarding AI. Obviously, there's a lot more. You can read it in the report. Number 4 is the issue of the demographic decline. I think you are very well aware of this, even though it seems to me that our public debate and our parliamentary debate is not talking much about it. We do see in many countries that the mortality rate has exceeded the birth rate. We see in migration within the OSCE region that in some areas causes a loss of population and lots of problems that go along with that. And I do think that as a region, we need to talk about this and find better solutions. One thing that I'm calling for is that governments should become active managers of the process instead of just observing the situation, if they do that at all. There is an issue of longevity medicine, so that we aim to progressively helping older people to be independent in old age, that we could improve our medical systems to help older people to stay agile and better cared for. I think that it needs a parliamentary accompanied demographic transition process and some political aims to progressively lower the biological age of our populations. And obviously what that could mean in very easy terms is that policies should be supporting parents to actually realize the wish of children that they actually have. We know in most of our countries that the wish to have children is higher than the number of children people have. And that is obviously also not only a political issue that we should be taking up. Number 5 is the issue of irregular migration, where I advocate for well-calibrated labor migration versus tackling the problem of illegal or irregular migration that brings along many, many problems. Number 6 is the problem of deindustrialization and economic dependency. And as you know, the impact of the OSCE region, or the share of the OSCE region in the world market, is decreasing. That is something worrying because, as we know, if the economy prospers, people prosper. And it is key that our region is attractive for business and industry. It is also key that we become more independent from large single-player supplier countries that do have us in their hands, and this is just dangerous politically. We also need to make sure that necessary products are available in the region, and we also should work towards diversifying our access to raw materials, which means cooperation with countries where those raw materials are being found, and we must not leave these cooperations to others that will, when they are successful, then use this as a means of pressure against us. We see this happening. So almost at the end, I have a chapter on digitalization and the right to participation in public life with analogous means. Now, that might sound complicated. We see that more and more public services and goods can only be accessed online. And obviously, we are all in favor of digitalization. But we have to make sure that people who do not have access for whatever reason, be it personal choice, old age, or even financial problems, that they can also access goods, services, and public life. And I think when we look into the human rights discussions, that we can actually establish this, there is such a thing as a human right to participate in society with analogous means. I also speak about the danger of smartphones, especially with very young children, and I commend those countries that have introduced bans on cell phones in schools for underage minors. Some countries in the OSCE region have done this, some countries discuss it, and some countries do not yet discuss it. I think that this is very important, and as a mother of 4, I would be happy if my country began discussing it. We are not yet at that point. Now, this was an overview of the focus of this year. You can see it is very broad. I have tried to make all of this in the report very concise. The draft resolution resembles the report. I am very happy to see the engagement of your delegations and to receive the amendments. It's not so many this year. I hear from the Secretariat that this is a good sign, not only because we will be fast in our discussions today, but also because the Secretariat said, well, this means that my report and work is well received by you, which makes me very happy. As I said initially, I have done this now for 3 years. It was, I have to say, a lot more work than I expected, but obviously we are here because we want to engage, so I was happy to give this time to the OSCE PA and to the second committee. But 3 years is plenty. I think nobody does more than this, and I'm also happy that there are other people coming with fresh ideas to the committee. So I will be now running as a vice president, because I love to work with OSCE PA, and that would be a logical first step. So if I have your support, I would be very, very happy, because it'd be good to do it. So in a sense, I want to thank you for your long attention. I want to thank again the teams that have worked on this, and I very much look forward to us discussing reports, draft resolution, and afterwards the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Gudrun, dear our rapporteur, for your presentation, and also, of course, for the work that you have done for the last 2 years or 3 years as a rapporteur. Dear colleagues, now I want to open the floor for debate. The time limit for speeches is 3 minutes. And if there are lots of members wishing to speak, I may reduce the time limit further to try to accommodate as many people as possible. So I have so far on my list 14 members wishing to speak, and first I would like to give the floor to our Vice Chair, Mr. Artur Gerasimov of Ukraine. This is traditionally the first we are giving the floor to our Vice Chair, and Artur Gerasimov is very active member of the Assembly and of course of the committee, bureau member, and I would like to greet Artur for your great efforts that you have done for the best interest of our Assembly, and please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, dear colleagues. First of all, I'm really glad to see all of you here because during all my years in the Assembly, I was telling the second committee is the main committee of the Assembly. You know, a lot of people were smiling 6, 7, 8 years ago. After COVID, less smiles. Now, after many things related to AI, related to the water issues, nobody is smiling. All of us understand that this is the main committee of the Assembly with respect to the first and the third committee. As for the activity of the committee, you know, the strategy of the committee is quite simple, but at the same time very comprehensive. We are trying to keep in focus the main issues: climate change, food security, influence of armed conflicts on environmental issues, on economical issues. But at the same time, we are trying to find every year the new issue. And our committee is some kind of pioneers in many areas. For example, during the COVID, under the leadership of Doris Barnett from Germany, we started deeply research the issue of air pollution influence on COVID. And we were the pioneers. After us, many international organizations started to pay much bigger attention to this issue, but the second committee of the OSCE was the pioneer in that. After, we started to deeply explore the issue of microplastic, because at the moment, many people even don't understand why it's important. But after microplastic was found in Antarctica, after microplastic was found in the bodies of people, and unfortunately all of us who is present here, we have microplastic inside us. We started to research this issue, and again, we were pioneers, and now we bring much bigger attention to this. And after us, like followers, many international organizations started to pay much bigger attention to that issue. AI, the debates which were organized about AI in Vienna, it was a brilliant example. And you know, also, what is very important, we always in this committee try not only theoretically study the question, but we inviting people from the ground. When it was the issue of COVID, we invited doctors, we invited experts who was really on the ground researching this issue. When we were speaking about AI, when for example, debates were organized, all of you who was present remember that we invited people from business related to AI. We invited experts who was in favor and against, and it was extremely interesting to listen to the people from, for example, Microsoft, who was explaining for us many things, but after discussing with them, because discussion is the key point of this committee, and in these discussions, we are creating such a comprehensive reports with a so small number of amendments, because the report already comprehensive. Also, I want to say thank you for all of you who is supporting Ukraine. Because yes, Ukrainian people now are suffering, and I want to say thank you for this committee for keeping in focus many issues related to this unprovoked aggression of Russia into our country. Nuclear power plants, extremely important. And this is not only about Ukraine, because, for example, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is now occupied, in big danger. Kakhovka Dam, it was a huge ecological catastrophe after Russian exploded, but most of you don't know, majority of you don't know that Kakhovka Dam was strongly connected to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant because of the water issue. And now Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in big danger because they're almost out of water for cooling the system. See how it's related. After Russians not paying attention to the technical equipment and keeping in normal circumstances the Zaporizhia power plant, and already nuclear stuff starting to go out. And Russians are telling, it's a small quantities, don't worry about it. Even small quantity of nuclear stuff which went out from the nuclear station, it's already the huge catastrophe and danger. Next point, migration. You know that millions of Ukrainians now, unfortunately, mostly women and children, out of our country. And thank you for this committee to keeping in focus attention to this issue. Also, food security. We are keeping this in focus of our committee. And last but not least, during all my presence in the assembly, I was trying, and thank you, Gudrun, for that, and thank you, Azai, for that, we were keeping in focus water issues. Because, you know, it's not only problem of some particular regions around the world. For example, Central Asian region, not. It's a problem which, at some moments, will hit every country in the world. And in case we will not pay attention, huge attention to this problem right now, in case we will not do prominent steps solving this problem right now, in 10, 15 years, the water problems will be problems of the majority of countries in this planet. That's why I see the report as very comprehensive and is very, very well done. Thank you very much, Gudrun, for that. It was really brilliant cooperation. It's true, sometimes I am forgetting about time and can call Gudrun, and after I'm realizing that this is early in the morning, but you know, this is the stuff, because this committee like a family. And we will miss you, of course, but I feel that as Vice President, because you as Vice President will always remember about committee and will be present during all our meetings. And last but not least, I kindly invite you to actively participate in the debates, in discussing the supplementary items which are proposed. All of them are very, very well done. Again, they're about water issues, they're about use, this is also very important. They're about influence of armed conflicts on environment. So, about fight with corruption from Iran, Hanolan bidders, all of them are really very good. Please support them. And again, this committee is the main one. I really congratulate all of you as the members of this second committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Artur. Yes, you have some certain privilege as a vice chair, and of course, it was very interesting to listen to you, but you know, I would like to ask our colleagues to stick to the timeline, because Artur Gerasimov, as a member of the Bureau, of course, need to explore some ideas or thoughts, or to share some things that has been done together in the committee. But Artur, you also mentioned some interesting points. Maybe it would be great for the future activities of the committee to tackle. And of course, I can understand that there will be the other colleagues that bring up some new ideas, fresh ideas for the committee to be taken into consideration in the activities of the committee for the coming 12 months. Thank you very much, dear Artur. Now I'd like to give the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Halil Snobs from North Macedonia. Halil, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, thank you, Ms. Kugler, for very concise and comprehensive report. Because of the time, I will be concentrated only on the topic of artificial intelligence. I will start with a statement, a specter hovers over the modern world, the specter of artificial intelligence. And nowadays the main question is, for which we still have no answer, is the artificial intelligence our friend or is it an enemy? As we navigate the intricate landscape of artificial intelligence advancements, it's imperative to recognize not only its potential for progress, but also the critical security implications it entails, as well as the responsibilities of digital citizenship in this rapidly evolving digital age. As we know, artificial intelligence represents the development of computer systems capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. Its significance lies in its ability to automate processes, analyze vast amount of data, and make decisions with unprecedented speed and accuracy. Artificial intelligence has revolutionized operations, leading to significant advancements in various industries. In healthcare, for example, diagnostic tools enhance patient care, predict disease outbreaks, and accelerate medical discoveries. In finance, artificial intelligence algorithms optimize trading strategies, detect fraudulent activities, and personalize customer experiences. In transportation, it enables autonomous vehicles, promising safer and more efficient mobility solutions, reducing accidents and traffic congestions. Despite its remarkable advancements, artificial intelligence introduces new security challenges and vulnerabilities. Artificial intelligence-powered attacks can exploit vulnerabilities in systems, amplify the scale and speed of attacks, and even mimic human behavior to deceive users. Developers should prioritize transparency in artificial intelligence algorithms and ensure accountability for their decisions and outcomes, adopting ethical principles and guidelines to promote fairness, accountability, and transparency, embracing a culture of continuous learning and adaptation to stay ahead of emerging threats. As we harness the transformative power of artificial intelligence, we must approach its development and deployment with vigilance and responsibility by addressing the security implications head-on, fostering collaboration, upholding ethical principles, and embracing digital citizenship. We can unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence while safeguarding our collective well-being and security in the digital era. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Halil. Now I'd like to give the floor to our colleague, Ms. Paula Cardosa from Portugal, to be followed by Ms. Anna Lickman of Ukraine. Paula, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, dear Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues. Please allow me to congratulate our rapporteur, Gudrun Kugler, for the excellent report and draft resolution. This is an outstanding combination of a comprehensive political and economic analysis, its impact throughout the OSCE region, and a set of recommendations in the draft resolution that outline a demanding but realistic path for our parliamentary assembly. I would like to focus on two areas: the challenges posed by the rapid development of artificial intelligence and the consequences of the deteriorating levels of peace in the world and in our region. As we know, the Portuguese Parliament organized in May a conference together with the OSCE on the security in the age of artificial intelligence. I must say that after listening to so many experts, I am hopeful, but at the same time very concerned about the road ahead of us. Although there are real concerns about the spread of artificial intelligence, the technology has enormous beneficial potential. The artificial intelligence and machine learning are incredibly powerful technologies. They can find patterns in mind-boggling amounts of data. What's more, they can learn to recognize objects and predict outcomes, and they get better over time. They will transform everything, or almost everything. However, machine learning and artificial intelligence are very intensive in terms of computing and consequently energy consumption. Unfortunately, artificial intelligence energy needs fossil fuels. This could destabilize even further the climate commitments already made. In geopolitical terms, AI can be used as a diplomatic weapon, not only in development and use of applications, but also in terms of investments, such as the purchase of company and other geographies. In the context, we should be on the lookout for the ship industry and cloud service. The effective control of these industries by states could also act as a possible gateway for intelligence service and their access to sensitive government and citizen data. As same participants in Lisbon conference stated, international cooperation is critical. Discussions underscore needs to synchronize efforts among key stakeholders to create a cohesive regulatory approach. Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, as we approach the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act, we should celebrate the OSCE achievement, but at the same time, we'll have to reflect on what the future of the organization should be in the parliamentary area, because we cannot to minimize the consequences of the armed conflicts, and as far as we can, influence the political actors directly involved. Our role as legislators and supervisors of the executive power is fundamental. We cannot shy away from exercising our powers. As elected representatives of the citizens and holders of democratic legitimacy, we have an obligation to exercise the power conferred on us. The OSCE and OSCE are known for committing to reduce the tensions and conflicts occurring within its area of competence, consolidate democratic institutions in each of its participating states, promote open economies based on sustained economic and social development, and focus on environmental issues. It is crucial that the effective work can be further improved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Paula Cardosa. Before giving the floor to our next speaker, I'd like to announce that the speaker list now is closed. Dear colleagues, I was told that Ms. Hanna Lechma is absent. Now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker from Cyprus, Mr. Christos Senex, to be followed by Mr. Mark Wiese from United States of America. Please, Christos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to thank the rapporteur for a very comprehensive report and draft resolution. Dear colleagues, our economies continue to suffer as a result of the ongoing tensions. The war in Ukraine, the crisis in the Middle East, and the Houthi rebel attacks in the Red Sea impact significant costs to our economies and to households in our countries, while mass migration and displacement of persons trying to flee conflict are causing further instability. Especially in Cyprus, we are still suffering under the ongoing Turkish occupation of the island and the violent displacement of 200,000 people from their houses for half a century since the Turkish invasion in 1974. Aside these risks, as is the case almost every year now, forest fires are savaging through Cyprus, Greece, and other countries in the Mediterranean basin and beyond. Climate change has exacerbated this problem. Neighboring countries, including Greece and Jordan, have recently sent firefighting airplanes to assist Cyprus forces, and we are very thankful for that. But multilateral cooperation must be further streamlined in this regard. Particularly, countries in the Mediterranean are experiencing scorching summers, increasingly long periods of heat waves, and increased water scarcity, which pose a significant threat to the environment, biodiversity, but also food production, fish reserves, and public health. July 2023 was the warmest July on record in Cyprus, and this year we had high temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius even since the beginning of April. In an effort to do our fair share in promoting multilateralism in environmental protection, Cyprus is collaborating with regional partners through initiatives like the Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East Climate Change Initiative, through which a regional action plan has been developed, supplementing national obligations under the Paris Agreement. Furthermore, Cyprus has hosted in April a Commonwealth ministerial meeting for promoting a sustainable agenda for our seas and oceans, acknowledging that our seas and oceans are valuable resources and an integral part of our economies and our identities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Mark Vize from United States, and he will be followed by Tarmik Shili of Azerbaijan. So, Mr. Vize, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I want to really commend the rapporteur's report for striving to address the numerous challenges that we faced with artificial intelligence. Obviously, artificial intelligence is something that's already being used to improve our lives, but we have to make sure that we're putting safeguards in place to make sure that it's not an existential threat to all of our lives. And we need to also make sure that we understand that AI poses risks to democratic societies by establishing, make sure that we guard against the risks that it could pose to democratic societies by establishing some clear guidelines that I think that all of us can use. We have to ensure that AI tools do not undermine human rights or democratic values or promulgate bias and discrimination in free societies. In the U.S., our executive and legislative branches are working to tackle these challenges. For example, the White House issued a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights that asserts principles and guidance around the equitable access to and the use of AI, including a value statement and best practices statement to encourage the development and transparency and trustworthy AI systems. Also in May, members of the U.S. Senate announced a bipartisan roadmap for artificial intelligence designed in conversations with leaders from civil rights, laborers, and creative communities to ensure that the development and use of AI is done responsibly and consistently with democratic values. And in closing, again, I just want to remind everyone that the same forces that committed the unlawful invasion against Ukraine, that these same forces and these same actors that won't say anything about the unlawful invasion, they're hoping that they can use AI to disrupt free societies and democratic states. And we have to make sure that we're guarding against that, and putting together a blueprint and a roadmap here will be what I think an important step forward to making sure that this can be used as something to help mankind and not undermine mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent. Now I'd like to give the floor to our colleague from Azerbaijan, Mr. Tarmik Shili. He will be followed by Mr. Percy Down of Canada. Mr. Mikshli, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like also to congratulate Ms. Kugler for a very comprehensive and very professional report and draft resolution also. As a part of the draft resolution is about the climate changes, COP28, Azerbaijan as a presidency of the COP29, we want to voice to some challenges that may be very interesting for all of us. The road to the COP29, the year's United Nations Climate Summit in Baku, Azerbaijan, feels like the build-up to a long-awaited climate after years of polarized debate on financing climate action for the world's most vulnerable countries. Against the global backdrop of geopolitical, economic, and social instability, Azerbaijan, the COP29 presidency, is hoping for a historic moment of renewed trust and collaboration on climate changes at the year's climate talks. Azerbaijan is confident in the potential of the finance COP to transform ambition into tangible action for small island developing states, least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and other countries and regions most impacted by climate change. We see Azerbaijan co-presidency as a pivotal in rebuilding trust and alignment between the global north and south through the new climate financing target sustained by developed countries. Our message ahead of COP29 is very clear. Universal cooperation and commitment are a must. We must demonstrate that the world is ready to work together to support each other. This is a very critical time, not only for Azerbaijan, but for the entire world to find the solutions. At COP29, nearly 200 nations will strive to agree on a new financial target. This is a very steep mountain to climb. In 2022, developed countries contributed and mobilized $116 billion for climate vulnerable countries, meeting the $100 billion annual climate finance goal for the very first time. Near half of the global population currently resides in countries where debt interest payment exceeds spending on education or healthcare. Unfortunately, after the COP28 in the past, if we look at the history and how we have performed and fulfilled our promises, we see that many countries were not performed or even started. Many countries signed different initiatives, declarations, and coalitions, but unfortunately, most of them are not working now. We think also that the enhancing dialogue and collaboration with the private sector can help them identify challenges and accelerate to follow the capital towards climate and nature-positive outcomes. It's very important that to find solutions to financial issues and discuss critical topics like water issues, land degradation, green agriculture, green skills, food security, green urban projects, and more. Azerbaijan aims to build this platform for all the countries to see how the world can organize a very constructive dialogues. We believe that if we can act together, we can achieve together also. So that's why we invite all the parliamentarians, members of parliaments, to visit Azerbaijan to take very actively part in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mikshali. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Percy Down of Canada. He will be followed by Ms. Aynur Agimbekova of Kazakhstan. Mr. Down, you have the floor.
Thank you. Let me begin by thanking all those who worked to prepare a detailed report and resolutions for our consideration. I would like to focus my comments on one important component of your report, the reconstruction of Ukraine. Russia's war against Ukraine has resulted in massive destruction and economic losses. Critical infrastructures, including energy and transportation networks, have been damaged or destroyed. Russian attacks have damaged as much as half of the country's electricity infrastructure, causing economic and physical hardship to millions of people, particularly during the cold winters. Russia has also contaminated vast areas of the country with landmines, ruining the economic livelihoods of countless Ukrainians. In February 2024, the World Bank and others produced a damage and need assessment which estimated that the total cost of reconstruction and recovery in Ukraine would be $486 billion over the next decade. Russia's brutal and ongoing war on Ukrainian territory means that the cost of recovery and reconstruction continues to mount every day. While active conflicts prevent major rebuilding from beginning, there's still much that can be done today to support Ukraine with its emergency short-term reconstruction needs. This includes funding to help Ukraine repair its electricity and energy systems, as well as its marine and export infrastructure to allow it to get goods to market. Preparations can also begin now for how the international community can support Ukraine's longer-term post-war reconstruction. As the rapporteur explains in the report, Ukraine's reconstructions provide a critical opportunity not only to rebuild, but to build back better. To do so, Ukraine will need support from a wide range of international partners and donors, including not only government, but the private sector and financial institutions as well. Put simply, the scale of the rebuilding of Ukraine is too big for governments to do alone. International initiatives reinforce the needs to explore additional options to finance Ukraine's reconstruction needs. There's a broad international agreement that damages by Russia wars requires compensation by Russia. In this regard, it's worth noting that Canada, the United States, and many European partners have taken actions to seize Russian assets and repurpose them to rebuild Ukraine. Colleagues, with Russia's war against Ukraine showing no signs of abating, we must commit to stand with Ukraine, not only today, but in the years to come. Thank you for your attention, and thank you once again to the rapporteur for this thoughtful report.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Aynur Argubekova of Kazakhstan. She will be followed by our Italian colleague, Ms. Federica Onore. Please.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Хочу поблагодарить нашего уважаемого докладчика, госпожу Гудрун Куглер, за проделанную работу и, пользуясь случаем, пожелать ей успехов на выборах. Доклад и проект резолюции охватили самые актуальные на сегодняшний день вопросы второго измерения ОБСЕ. Это проблемы экологии, изменения климата, водных ресурсов, вопросы миграции, демографии и многое другое. Мне, как депутату от Казахстана, очень приятно, что один из разделов доклада посвящен проблеме водных ресурсов в Центральной Азии. Для нас это очень актуальная тема, поскольку в нашем регионе в силу разных факторов, включая антропогенные, наблюдается острая нехватка воды. С этой целью 2 июля по инициативе специального представителя Ассамблеи по Центральной Азии, уважаемой госпоже Фара Карими, пройдет сайт-ивент на тему изменения климата и проблемы нехватки воды в Центральной Азии. Приглашаю всех посетить это мероприятие, которое начнется 2 июля в 1:30 в комнате 4. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker, as I announced, is our Italian colleague, Ms. Federica Onori. She will be followed by Ms. Kari Henriksen of Norway. Madam Onori, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to congratulate Ms. Kugler and everybody who works on this resolution for the very excellent work they've done. It touches upon very, very important topics, cooperation on the reconstruction of Ukraine, also using frozen assets, since we need to hold Russia accountable for what he's doing, and then also artificial intelligence, clearly, but also brain drain, which affects so much young generations, and environmental crimes. On this very last point, I will be very glad to talk more in depth when we will come to the supplementary item I propose to this Assembly in the next days. What I would like to focus my intervention now is another aspect, which is participation in society. I do believe this committee, the second committee on the economic affairs, technology, and environment, has the added value of being, or potential in being, visible in the things that we do. Also in order to make OSCE more recognizable, more known in the civil society, especially among the young generation. So participation in society is one, from my personal point of view, can be one of the main aim of this committee, really. What does participation mean? Participation is, for example, to fight against disinformation, as this resolution clearly assesses. Disinformation, what does it mean? Again, we have children and young people, and on the other side, the elderly. These are the ones who risk to be left behind in using technology the way we use it right now, which is really, we look at how the role of technology is increasing day by day, and the risk is there for us that a part of society is left aside of this. And this is a risk for our democracy. So disinformation, in the sense of being able to read something or to watch a video and understand, or have some idea of how we can understand whether the source is reliable or not. But participation also in a political in political terms, for example, to have the right to vote. We talk a lot of the digital vote, but we should not forget that not everybody not everybody has the skill to use all these technological means. So to keep digital and non-digital means, I think is really key, as the resolution highlights, in order to very well adapt to this very fast changing world. But of course, participation being able to pay, for example, with cash or digital means. It also means access to information and the possibility to launch a complaint. Why not? All this is very important in order to keep our democracies strong, because I think that before being anything else, democracy is participation, and we need to keep this alive as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to give the floor to our colleague from Norway, Ms. Kari Henriksen. She will be followed by our colleague from Spain, Mr. Pere John Posch. Mr. Pere is also Vice President of the Assembly. Kari, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, dear Asai. I will give credit to Mr. Kugler for her report, and in my opinion, it is a very good report. It addresses many major pro and cons which AI and new technology can give us. I want to address some comments to the paragraph on side 4, which highlights the AI's possibilities to spread fake news and its possibility to influence our moral choices and opinion information. Moral is a personal value, and we see tendencies from some ideologies to change the content and the meaning of the word. I just want to underline that the moral that this assembly is committed to is anchored in international human rights conventions, safeguarding equal rights, liberty for women, no discrimination of gay people, minorities, and safeguarding migrants. We are in this month celebrating Pride. And in Norway in 2022, we had a terror attack against this celebration. 2 people were shot dead, and the planning of this terror action was done by the help of new technology. In our commitments and in our work with the IE, we must always have our practical solutions anchored in our international values. The AE is a very good help for giving help to many people to defend our countries, as Arthur is saying, but it also has possibilities to surveil political opponents, gay people, and others. And I just want to underline that this is the commitment that the OSCE has to have in front of our heads and hearts when we develop practical use of AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Kari. Now, our next speaker, Mr. Pere Pons from Spain, and he will be followed by Mr. Birgir Thoransson from Iceland. So, Pere, please, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. As I some notes that I delivered also in the OSCE Ministerial Council a week ago in Malta. Just first, I think it's very important to keep climate change high on the agenda. Second, parliaments have to accelerate change. Third, we are not in a situation of emergency in terms of climate change. We are in a situation of collapse. We need to take action urgently. I think Azerbaijan and Baku is a super opportunity to accelerate change. Fifth point, I would say that it is extremely important that we make a fair transition. If we do not make a fair transition, democracy will pay the bill, because populism is instrumentalizing climate change. I heard President Trump talking about electric planes and how he instrumentalized this situation of climate change. So if we don't do this fair transition, if middle classes and working classes feel that they pay the bill, democracy will suffer. Another point, wars are all ecological today. They have all an ecological impact. You cannot dissociate war and ecological. Then disinformation also extremely important. Today, climate change is also a tool for disinformation, for polarization, for division. And let me also say some points on the report. Good report, but I have a couple of remarks because I totally disagree on the points regarding demographic decline, migration. So my first point is, migrant is, no matter who changes of country, changes of residence. Then there are rules, and one of the rules in liberal democracies is that you have the right of movement. So now in the 19th century, 60 million people emigrated to the US, for example. Today we have created this debate on the limits of migration. But there are some paragraphs here in which it is clearly linked migration and religion and crime, etc. So my first point is, if you link workers and pensioners, for example in Europe, just at the EU level, you need almost 15 migrants until 2050. So I think it's a very artificial debate. There is only 3.5% of migrants of the total population. So I would really like to underline that we cannot link migration to good and bad. We cannot link migration to crime and to problems of religion, because it links, the third point is terrorism linked to religion. So I think linking migration as such to all these problems is very, very dangerous for an assembly which believes in democracy and human rights and political change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Paul. And now I would like to give the floor to our last speaker, Mr. Birger Tormensson. Sorry if I have some wrong pronunciation, from Iceland, and then we will go ahead with our next item of our agenda. So, Mr. Birger, you have the floor. He is not here? No. Okay, if he is absent, then we will move on our next item. But before concluding the part of debate, I would like to ask our rapporteur, Ms. Kugler, if she has any remark or comment to the questions raised by our colleagues here. Please, Kugler, Madam Kugler, you have the floor, if you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all colleagues who took the floor, and I want to say a very big thank you for all the kind words that were uttered. I very happily received them. Several people and delegations spoke about artificial intelligence. I would like to underline what you said. This is very much also my thinking, and I hope that you could see this also in the focus of this report. And Paula Cardoza from Portugal again mentioned the conference that the Lisbon, the Portuguese delegation and herself put on in May, which was absolutely excellent. And Paula, thank you for your commitment and expertise to these issues. It was really one of the best OSCE PA conferences I ever attended. I would I'd like to also underline the point of the Canadian delegation about the necessity of wide-range support for Ukraine and rebuild back better. I think this is absolutely key. Thank you for saying that. Now, I would also like to underline what Ms. Onore from Italy said about democracy. Thank you for explaining. And I like very much the brevity and the depth of your sentence saying democracy is participation. I think this is, for this assembly, a key sentence we need to use much more often. And the last comment of our colleague Pierre Pons from Spain. First of all, I would just like to say that with regard to migration, I think that most of the people here do agree that we have to distinguish regular from irregular migration. And maybe it's not such an issue in Spain, but in many other countries, we do have problems. And I would just like to say, for example, what we see in Germany is similar to what we see in Austria. So if we turn our eyes away from this, I think then a problem to democracy arises, because then the people will turn away from their governments. This is an issue we are seeing at the moment, and we need to be very much careful not to leave the people behind and their worries. But I would like to support one thing that Pierre Pons said that I also very much agree with, and that maybe is a good way of ending the general debate about report and draft resolution, and that is that it's parliaments to accelerate change. And we know that one voice can make such a difference. And here is all of us, by being here, committing to being those voices. This is how we will accelerate change that we desperately need on all of the topics mentioned. So thank you very much for being in this together.
Thank you very much, dear Kugler. Now we will be considered the amendments submitted to the draft resolution. As you know, 8 valid amendments have been tabled, and the copies of the amendments have been made available. According to our rules and the established practice, while discussing amendments, I will call the proposer of the amendment first, and then we'll call any opponent of the amendment. I will then ask the sponsor of the resolution, Ms. Kugler, if she has any comment for her opinion. Following that, I shall put the amendment to the vote. I ask speakers to observe a time limit of 1 minute. We are also required to vote on every paragraph to which here are no amendments. To save time and to avoid many votes on items that have broad support, I hope you agree that if no amendment has been tabled to a paragraph, and if nobody requests a vote on a paragraph, we can consider it adopted. Needless to say, any time a specific vote is requested, we will do so. Are there any objections? No. Thank you very much. Now I will ask, we will now take paragraph 1 to 11 together. Does anyone request a vote of any of these paragraphs? No. If it is not the case, then the paragraph 1 to 11 agreed. Now we start considering amendment. I called Mr. Arini from Andorra to propose amendment 1 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 11. So, Mr. Arini, you have the floor. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, let me take this opportunity to express my gratitude to Romania for this hospitality. I am truly honored to speak in such a wonderful venue. Dear colleagues, the amendment that I would like to put forward refers to the issue of the landlocked countries, a large group of OSCE participating states distinguished by different geographical constraints, such as the lack of maritime access, geographical isolation, remoteness, and weak transport connectivity. As a matter of fact, these conditions explain some of the biggest difficulties that landlocked countries are currently facing. The lack of access to the sea translates into substantial economic and security challenges. Long story short, landlocked countries rely heavily on neighboring states to take part in global markets, which makes these countries more vulnerable to political and economic changes. That is to say, transport connectivity has become a lifeline for any country, but more so for those countries without coastal accesses. Weak transport infrastructure hampers trade, escalates costs, and slows down economic development. It creates bottlenecks that undermine growth, investment, and even national security. For this reason, 10 years ago, in 2014, the United Nations introduced one of the main and first documents where the issue of the landlocked countries was addressed, the Vienna Program. In a couple of weeks, the UN will hold an international conference to assess its implementation. The Vienna Program has certainly had a positive impact in many regions of the globe. However, its different contributions have been limited to the needs of the least developed countries. In this regard, there is a widespread sense of necessity to expand the implementation of the Vienna Program, including new developed countries whose future is also constrained by geographical isolation. I am sure that all the members of this Assembly are well aware of the importance to promote accessibility, effective infrastructure, and transport connectivity for any country's economy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I didn't want to interrupt our colleague by proposing his or her amendment, but please, we have 1 minute to propose amendment. Please try to be in line with this time limit and stick to the 1 minute if it is possible, of course. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to ask if there is any colleague wishing to speak against this amendment. Please raise your hand. No. No one wishes to speak against the amendment. Now, I would like to ask the opinion of our rapporteur. Madam Kugler, you have the floor.
Thank you. I am in favor of this amendment. Thank you for tabling it. I just have two hesitations. One is that we also have Amendment 4, which is very similar, and of course you proposed both of them. So if in an ideal world, if we had more time, I would say let us combine 1 and 4, so have it 1 time and not 2 times in the draft resolution. Maybe you want to do this, we could do that. And then secondly, I think that the first one, not 4, but 1, is rather negative regarding the situation of landlocked countries. Myself from Austria, I'm also from a landlocked country. But you know, we are saying geographic isolation, remoteness, and weak transport connectivity. None of these things are true for Austria. And so I find it too negative because that's just not the case, right? However, if we do not have time to go into this and change it, I will be in favor.
Thank you very much. Now I shall put Amendment 1 to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment please raise their voting cards? In favor?
Eight here, 13 in the middle.
Thank you very much. Now, will those against this amendment please raise their voting cards? 2 against. Any abstentions? 1, 2. Thank you very much. The amendment is adopted. Now I will take paragraphs 12 to 21 together. Does anyone request a vote of any of these paragraphs? No, it is not the case. So paragraphs 12 to 21 agreed to. Now I call Mr. Bingöl from Turkey to propose Amendment 2 to insert the new paragraph after paragraph 21. Mr. Bingöl, please, you have the floor.
Günaydın. Değerli meslektaşlarım, sizleri saygıyla selamlıyorum. Birleşmiş Milletler Çevre Programı kapsamında İklim Değişikliği Bölgesel Faaliyet Merkezi'nin İstanbul'da kurulması planlanmıştır. Bu da Akdeniz'de işbirliğini, dayanıklılığı ve sürdürülebilir kalkınmanın güçlenmesine katkı sağlayacaktır. Bu merkez, birleşik ve proaktif bir bölgesel yaklaşımı teşvik edecektir. Aynı zamanda bu merkezin iklim sorunlarında işbirliğine dayalı çözümleri destekleyeceğine inanıyoruz. Bu sebeple değişiklik yönergesine desteğinizi rica ediyorum. Bu arada ülkemize yöneltilen suçlamaya karşı yanıt hakkımı kullanmak istiyorum. Adada herhangi bir işgal söz konusu değildir. Türkiye, 1974 yılında adanın ilhakını önlemek amacıyla garantör devlet olarak 1960 Garanti Antlaşması'ndan kaynaklanan hak ve yükümlülükler temelinde Kıbrıs Barış Harekatı'nı icra etmiş, Kıbrıslı Türkleri katliamdan kurtarmış ve adaya barış getirmiştir. Teşekkür ederim.
Distinguished
Thank you very
Chair,
much.
members of the Parliament,
As far as-
I would like
You will now, yes, please.
Distinguished Chair, distinguished participants, my dear colleagues, I would like to mention that within the scope of United Nations Environment Programme, the Climate Change Regional Activity Center is planned to be established in Istanbul to be operational. And this center is going to be promoting the cooperation, the strengthened cooperation, resilience and sustainable development in Mediterranean region. We also believe that this center will be promoting a united and proactive regional approach. At the same time, we believe that this center is going to be helping fostering collaborative solutions to climate challenges, to climate issues. Therefore, I urge your support for this crucial initiative. In addition, before I conclude, I would like to make use of my right to respond in Cyprus, in the island, there is no Turkish occupation. Turkey used its rights and responsibilities, within the scope of its rights and responsibilities from the Treaty of Guarantee of 1960 in 1974 and started Cyprus peace operation in order to prevent the annexation of the island as a guarantor state. Therefore, Turkey saved the Turkish spirits from a massacre and brought peace to the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 2? No, I don't see anyone. Now I'd like to give the floor to our rapporteur for her opinion.
I'm in favor of the amendment. Many thanks for tabling it. I think that such a center that will support research on prevention, mitigation, and adaptation of the effects of climate change, especially in the Mediterranean, is very useful, so I'm in favor of the amendment.
Thank you very much. Now I will put Amendment 2 to the vote. Will all those in favor of amendment please raise their voting cards? Please, a bit high, up. Thank you very much. Against? Against? 1, 2, 3. 3 against. Any abstentions? 2, 4, 5. 5 abstentions. So, do you have a number? So, 30 is in favor, against 3, abstention 5. So, amendment number 2 is adopted. Dear colleagues, before moving to another paragraphs, I'd like to remind you that our time is over, but we have started a bit late. Maybe we can continue for about 5 minutes. Is it okay for you? We can conclude by 10:40 maybe. Okay, if no objection, I want to ask to vote for the paragraphs 22 to 36 together. Does anyone want a vote of any of these paragraphs? No. So paragraph 22 to 36 agreed. Now I'd like to call Mr. Hudson from the United States of America to propose Amendment 3 to insert a new paragraph after paragraph 36. Mr. Hudson?
I think it's Visi, right?
Visi. Mr. Visi, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. This amendment urges OSCE participating states to adopt national legislation to authorize the seizure and transfer of Ukraine of frozen Russian sovereign assets to fund Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. In the United States, there is an effort that Mr. Hudson is leading with others in rebuilding economic prosperity and opportunity for Ukraine Act, or the REPO Act, to accomplish this goal. And this legislation was signed into law in April, and it boasted international momentum for supporting Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. It's also encouraging that the G7 in June took the historic decision to extend a $50 million loan to Ukraine using the proceeds from the $300 million in frozen Russian sovereign assets. We have to build a broad coalition, particularly in Europe, to ensure that Russia pays for its unjustifiable and unlawful invasion of Ukraine. The United States and our G7 partners have taken the first steps in this direction, and I urge my colleagues to commit to doing more. Supporting this amendment will be a key step in doing just that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to ask our colleagues if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. It is not the case. Now, please, Madam Kugler, you have the floor for your opinion.
I thank Richard Hudson, Mark Veazey, and the American delegation for tabling this. This is very important. Thank you. I'm absolutely in favor.
Thank you very much. Now, I shall put Amendment 3 to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment please raise their voting cards? Thank you very much. Against? No one is against. Any abstention?
No.
4, 5.
One on this side. One.
5 abstention. So Amendment 3 is adopted. Now, colleagues, we will take paragraphs 37 to 41 together. Does anyone request a vote of any of these paragraphs? No. So it means that those paragraphs are agreed to. I call now Mr. Areni from Andorra to propose Amendment 4 to insert the new paragraph after paragraph 41. Mr. Areni, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to say that I agree with Mrs. Kugler's recommendation to combine both amendments. However, while the substance from this amendment is similar to the one that I presented a few minutes earlier, there are some significant differences that must be underlined, particularly the fact that one amendment refers to the preambulary part of the resolution and the second amendment is directed to propose more concrete actions. I also agree with Ms. Kugler's recommendations of employing more positive language so that we can be more inclusive in this debate about landlocked countries. Anyways, with this amendment, I would like to stress the importance of granting uninterrupted access to landlocked countries. Because of their geographical constraints, landlocked countries' security is often compromised when their accesses are blocked. This is particularly true in countries with weak transport connectivity in the event of an environmental, social, or economic emergency. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now I shall ask our audience, our distinguished colleagues, if anyone wishes to speak against this amendment. No one wishes to speak against. Now I'd like to ask the opinion of our rapporteur, Madame Kugler. You have the floor.
I thank Mr. Areni for the explanations. I am happy to agree with what you've said, and I'm in favor of amendment number 4.
Thank you very much. Now I shall put Amendment 4 to the vote and will ask if you are in favor. Please raise your voting cards. In favor?
8.
Thank you very much. Against? Against?
0.
No one is against. Any abstentions? No abstentions. So, by that, Amendment 4 is agreed to. Dear colleagues, as we approach to the time of our today's session that has been allocated for about 1 hour and 30 minutes, I'd like to thank all of you for your great contribution. And I'd like to announce that we will continue the consideration of the amendment to the draft resolution tomorrow at 9 a.m. So tomorrow we also will begin consideration of supplementary items at our meeting, and I wish you all the best. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you very much. The meeting is closed.